Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. And in this video, I'm gonna discuss the air pump, or the smog pump, as people call it. I get a lot of questions about deleting the air pump on these cars and what's all involved with it. It's not super easy, but it's not all that difficult either. It's a little bit of a process. So what I have here is a 1980 Indy 500 pace car. It has the air pump on it. Actually, some of the things are incorrect. It actually has an 81 air management valve on the backside of it, which is not correct. But we're gonna be eliminating the air pump on this one, and I'm gonna go through and I'm gonna show you all the parts, pieces, things that you need to do that. So let's take a look at it right now. So like I said, this is an 80 Indy 500 pace car customer brought to us. There's a few things that are incorrect on this engine, but one of the things being that somebody went and replaced the air pump with one from an 81. So let's discuss that. This is the air management valve. Some call it the diverter valve. And this is actually different between 80 and 81. In 1981, it has these electronic connectors on it because there were solenoids that were turning it on and off with the ECM. There was also a fitting on the bottom for a hose and pipe that went along the passenger side of the oil pan and went to the catalytic converter. So 81 actually had a pipe for the air pump, and it was actually putting air into the catalytic converter to kind of light it up. 1980 did not have that, only 81 had that. So this car, in its history, something must have happened. The air pump was replaced. In fact, you can see that it's pretty much up against the up pipe here, which is not correct. But we're going to go ahead and eliminate the air pump here. So one of the things that you'll notice, and the biggest problem with doing this, is that the air pump is actually kind of an idler pulley to the alternator. So the belt for this system, the air pump needs to be there to drive the alternator. So the only three pulleys that are being used for the alternator belt is the crankshaft at the bottom, the air pump, and then the alternator. So if we take off the air pump, we really don't have a good way to drive the alternator anymore. And that's where we have to look into the water pump pulley. So the water pump is a single groove pulley, and actually, again, this car is not 100% correct. This pulley is awfully large. I have a feeling that this pulley is from a non-air conditioned Pontiac, which is a larger diameter. So the easy way to do it is we need to get a 2-groove water pump pulley. And the 2-groove water pump pulley that we need is roughly about 6.5 inches in diameter. So any 1970 to 1979 Pontiac V8 with air conditioning will have a 2-groove water pump pulley, 6.5 inch diameter. You can't use it from any other engine. You can't use a Chevrolet one. You can't use one from the 403 Olds engine. They're different. They're not the correct offsets. I've seen some stuff where people are trying to shim them and try to use some other type of pulley. Maybe that would work, but I don't recommend doing that. I like to just use what works. So we have a pulley for this car. We're going to be taking off the air pump. We're going to be taking off the water pump pulley, fan. Actually, we're going to be replacing his fan shroud also, because this looks like a really bad knockoff one or something. But he's got an original fan shroud that he wants put on it. We're going to go through all of that. But the other side of this is you have to decide how far you want to go with removing the air pump. Now, some people will just remove the air pump, but there is this hose here. And this hose is going down, and there's a check valve right there, and there's a tube going across the front of the engine. There's a tube that is going into an aluminum spacer block on the front of the passenger side cylinder head, and then that tube comes around to the driver's side cylinder head right behind the power steering pump. It's this black tube right here, and it is attached to the front of the cylinder head here, and that is what is pumping air into the exhaust. How are we getting air into the exhaust if we're pumping it into the front of the cylinder head? Well, that's where Pontiac engineers kind of came up with this great idea where they actually cast a passage into the cylinder head to inject the air in the exhaust port of the cylinder head. So unlike a Chevrolet, which had the air pump and they had the tubes that were going into the exhaust manifolds that you could just unscrew them and put plugs in them or whatever, Pontiac actually cast passages in the cylinder head. So the exhaust manifolds were no different. There was no tubing or anything on the exhaust manifolds. The port that is in the exhaust ports, where the air pump or where the air was being delivered, it was only delivering the air in the exhaust ports on the front and then the back. The center exhaust ports did not have the passages. So it's only the front and rear exhaust port have the passage for the air pump. But what we're going to do is we're going to actually remove the pipe, and we're going to put freeze plugs in the front of the cylinder head. It's the same freeze plug that's used at the back of the head, because this passage goes clear through to the back side, but there's plugs on the back side already. We do have to remove a reducer bushing or fitting that's in the driver's side head for the tube. That has to get knocked out so that we can put the freeze plug in it. But I'll show you that when we get that far with it. So for right now, we're going to start dismantling here and taking things apart, and I'll show you exactly what's going on. All right, we got the accessories removed. Let's take a closer look at what we're dealing with, especially with this air pipe. So you can see here we got the power steering pump off, alternators out of the way. Here's the pipe that I was talking about. It is bolted on. The bolt's missing. The bolt's missing. There would be a bolt in that tab to hold it up against the cylinder head. There's actually a sleeve on the back side that has an O-ring on it, and it slips into the cylinder head. So it's just an O-ring sealing that. Now, a lot of people, you have to understand, this is the passage that's cast into the exhaust port. It's exposed to the exhaust port. So exhaust can come up into this tube, and that is why we have this check valve. The check valve is to keep the exhaust gases from coming up into the air pump. I've seen some of these fail, and they actually melted the diverter valve or the air management valve on the back of the air pump. But if this leaks, like the O-ring leaks or anything like that, that's an exhaust leak. And in a turbo car, that's an exhaust leak before the turbo, so that can actually cause you some lag, slower spool up of the turbo. So now on this side, this is the other side. This side's different. So the passenger side here has this big plate, and this plate has a gasket on the back between that and the cylinder head, and that's where it's getting its exhaust flow, or I should say its airflow from the pump. And the tube is coming over, and it's O-ringed into this plate, and the plate's hollow on the back side, but nothing is bolting this tube into here. So this is just slip fit, friction fit of the O-ring. So what we're going to do then is, well, heck, we could do it right now probably. I don't know. That's on there pretty good, isn't it? We're going to see if we can get that pipe off. So grab a screwdriver here. So this should just pop out of here since there's no, yep, there it goes. So this is on here. That's coming out of the cylinder head, and then that didn't stay on very long. Actually, my new fuel line is going to be in the way, so we're gonna have to take the fuel line off. But basically, this is just gonna slip fit out of that bracket. Actually, why don't we just unbolt the bracket? We're just gonna unbolt that bracket and be able to take that pipe right off. Let me grab the ratchet here. So, some people might think, well, you're just going to eliminate this plate, but you can't. You need the plate because the plate acts as a spacer to all the air conditioning brackets. So we're going to actually put that plate back on. There we go. And there's the pipe. And like I mentioned, let's see if we can focus there. Oh, that's kind of beat up, but yeah, there's an O-ring there. Like I said, it's an O-ring going into here. Like I said, it's hollow on the back side. There would normally be a gasket here. You can't get this gasket separately anymore. We can make you one if you need it, but we're going to end up plugging off that port with a freeze plug. So really we don't need the gasket because no exhaust is not going to come out of here anymore. On the driver's side, like we mentioned, the driver's side should have the fitting which somebody removed. So this engine's been rebuilt. I'm sure the machine shop probably pulled all the plugs and everything out of the head when they refurbished the cylinder heads. So luckily we don't have to knock out the little adapter because that's kind of a pain. But now we can press in the freeze plugs. We can put everything back together. So we have this engine here that we can show in more detail what's going on and what I'm talking about. So the plate would go over here, and as you can see, there's the hole, and we showed that on the car itself. That's the hole, the air passage for the air pump. Now this is what I was talking about on the driver's side. It was missing in the car. This is the adapter. It's kind of an insert, reducer, bushing, whatever you want to call it, because the metal pipe attaches right in here with an O-ring. It slips into there and seals into there with an O-ring, and it would bolt right there. So this is the piece that has to get knocked out. Usually you got to chisel it out with a screwdriver and hammer and stuff, and basically destroy it to get it out so that it looks like that one where it's just a hole. Once you get this out, then you can put the freeze plug in it. So we have this engine over here that we're getting ready to run, and you can see we have a freeze plug in there on both sides, blocked off. And the freeze plug that you want to use, that I use, it's actually a 20 millimeter diameter, and it's a Dorman 555-101. That's what we end up using. So here's the pulley that we use. 2 groove, 6.5 inch diameter. There is a part number on these usually. Yep, right here. See if we can focus in on that. 481040XT. That's usually what we end up finding. But 70 to 79 Pontiac V8 with AC. So we're gonna put this on. So that's basically in a nutshell what it takes to actually remove the air pump from one of these engines. And like I said before, it's it's not the easiest thing. You know, it's not like, oh, just gonna, you know, take the air pump off and put a different size belt on it. You have to actually go through and, you know, at least put the pulley on it so that you can run the alternator again. But for the most part, you know, a lot of people, is it a horsepower savings? I don't know if it is or not. I mean, it doesn't take a whole lot of horsepower to use it. Most of the time, it's just an aesthetic thing because, you know, the air pump sits up top, and it's kind of ugly when you open the hood. It's the first thing you see. It clutters up the engine, and a lot of people want to take it off of there just to kind of clean it up. But that's going to do it for today's video. Appreciate you guys watching, liking, subscribing, and, you know, feel free to put it out there if there's any other technical videos you guys want to see about the 301. But until next time, we'll catch you later.